Yo, 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 it's your boy Jew coming at you guys with another live. I won't call this What's the Word, but I'm back going live. We all know that What's the Word was normally during the off season, I believe on Tuesdays, like midday. So I won't call this What's the Word Dirty Bird, but it's another live video I'm going to be giving you guys every Tuesday now that the season's back upon us. But if you can hear me, definitely give me a thumbs up in the actual comment section so I can know you guys can hear me. And as you guys come in, make sure you guys hit the like button. Make sure if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, hit that subscribe button for your boy. Um, and I definitely gonna jump into the chat and say what's up to you guys as you guys come in. The first person I seen in here was Xavier Littman. So what's up to Xavier? He was you the first one that I see here in the chat. So I appreciate you joining me. Georgia, Texas boy says what it do, Jew. AFN Falcons fam. The new era is here. The Atlanta Falcons will rise in 2025 and beyond. I appreciate the thumbs up. William Amy says, what's good, man? I guess DeMarco Hellum's getting first team reps as strong safety outside. A137 Sauce says, Jew, what it do? Ali with the thumbs up. What's going on, man? John St. Clair says, what's up? And William Amy says, it's my birthday. Thank God I'm 30. Well, happy birthday, William Amy. Y'all make sure y'all say happy birthday to William in the chat. It's definitely a blessing to, see another birthday, another year around the sun. So definitely shouts out to you on your birthday. And I appreciate you spending your birthday, a little bit of your time with me. You could have been doing a lot of other things, but I really appreciate each and every one of you guys for jumping in and saying what's up. Shouts out to my bro, Mad Mike says, I'm here, bro. What's going on, man? I appreciate you for jumping in as always. Yeah, y'all make sure y'all say happy birthday to William, man. I appreciate y'all showing him some love on his birthday. He say 30. Yeah, man. Dirty 30, man. Welcome to the 30 club. I'm 36 myself, so welcome to the 30 club, man. Like I said, it's definitely a blessing to see another year. But we're gonna get right into the content. But like I said, man, make sure y'all hit that thumbs up as you come in. Make sure you share out the content. You guys know it's been a while since I've been live. Been having a lot going on. As you guys know, my wife had a baby in January. As you guys know, my wife's a teacher, so she was out for the summer. And you guys know that I'm dad first, and then everything else, comes after, you know, faith, family, football. So y'all know, God comes first, then the family. Then once I know that they're good, then I'm definitely gonna continue to give y'all great content. So appreciate you guys for, like I said, always rocking with your boy. And y'all always show mad love, man. I appreciate everybody that super chats. I appreciate each and every one of you guys that like all of my videos, comment on the videos, give me ideas for content. And appreciate all of the other content creators, man, that support the channel. Definitely Mad Mike Sports. That's my brother right there. 6MK, 6 Man K Styles. If y'all haven't hit that subscribe button on their channel, show them some love. Smitty Sports Machine. All of the ones that's out there making this Atlanta Falcons content. It's a lot of new Atlanta Falcons content creators in this space. So shouts out to everybody that's putting out great content. I don't just watch the Atlanta Falcons content, but I check out NFL content around, on YouTube just in general. Some of the Panthers content creators, some of the Saints content creators, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, So I'm just super excited about the upcoming season, but definitely excited that there's a lot of new content creators, especially in the Atlanta Falcons space. So you guys make sure y'all show them some love as well. All of the new content creators that's have started creating Atlanta Falcons content. So with that being said, I do want to talk tonight, basically give you kind of my prediction for the 53-man roster. As you guys know, we're one more preseason game away from having cuts next week. And we've seen some interesting stuff through training camp. We've seen some interesting stuff in these preseason games. Personally, I've seen some interesting stuff. And it's a couple guys that's on the bubble. But doing this 53-man roster, I kind of went back and forth with a couple different players, but good news is we have, I believe it's like 16 to 17 spots on the practice squad. So that should allow the Falcons to keep some of this talent if these guys, do make it through waivers and things of that nature. But I'm gonna give you guys my rundown of the 53 man roster. This is just gonna be my prediction of what I think who's gonna actually make this roster based off of what I've seen out of training camp, what I've heard, from Raheem Morris and these guys and these press conferences. So without further ado, we're gonna first jump right in. And before I do that, what's up to my boy, Mr. Tactician? What's up, Juan? I appreciate you joining me, man, as well. Y'all make sure y'all go and hit that like button and subscribe button on his channel as well. He does his live shows, I believe, on Friday nights. So y'all make sure y'all go show him some love, man. He's doing great content over there. And all of the channels on AFN. Like I said, all of the Atlanta Falcons content, man. Make sure y'all support it. But with that being said, we're going to start with the quarterback position in the 53 man roster. So I have three quarterbacks that are making the roster. I have Michael Penix Jr., of course, making the roster as our starter. Kirk Cousins making this roster as the backup. And then Easton Stick making this 53 man roster. Now, the reason that I put Easton Stick on the roster or making the 53 man roster is because I don't know if Kirk Cousins at this point is still trade bait. I do think if someone gets hurt, Easton Stick could end up being the backup if they dangle Kirk Cousins out there. We know that injuries are going to happen at some point in this season for every single team around the league. And in that instance, they're going to want a starter caliber type quarterback. Now, personally, I would keep Kirk Cousins on this roster as the backup because I feel like if the Falcons make a deep run or they have a really good season, and God forbid Michael Penix, knock on wood, goes down with an injury, I don't know if you're going to have to rely on Easton Stick. Now, do I think Easton Stick is capable of leading this Falcons team? Yes, but I would feel more comfortable with having a Kirk Cousins as the backup. So if you do end up in a situation like the Philadelphia Eagles was in a couple years ago, where they had Carson Wentz go down, they had a guy in Nick Foles that was a former starter, similar to a Kirk Cousins, and he was able to step right in as that backup and basically take over that starting role. And they went on that playoff run to win the Super Bowl. So I really feel like that can be a similar thing that could happen with the Falcons when it comes to Kirk Cousins. God forbid if something were to happen to Michael Penix Jr., Kirk Cousins is a great, I'll say, security or insurance policy to have, because he's a guy that we know is super experienced. The moment's not going to be too big for him. If he had to step in a playoff game situation, or even if he had to step in for the remainder of the season for any reason as the quarterback, we know that he's familiar with this coaching staff and he's familiar with the players on this team. So I'll just leave it at that. But that's my thoughts on why Easton Stick should make the team, because if for any reason, they were to trade Kirk Cousins, now you know that you have a guy that's capable, that's been with the team since training camp, that knows the system. And I would be very reluctant or very careful about putting Easton Stick on the practice squad, because another team could easily sign him off of our practice squad to their 53 man roster. And then at that point, you're going to definitely have to keep Kirk Cousins. You're not going to have a choice, because then you're not going to have nobody that knows the scheme and that hasn't went through training camp and everything with you. So the benefit of having Easton Stick on the roster is he knows the scheme. He's been with this team, for the full training camp. He's played in all three preseason games. He has some familiarity with some of the guys that are on the roster. So that's the benefit of keeping him on this team. But in the running back position, I have two running backs making the roster with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. And that's, goes without saying. I do think that Nathan Carter is a guy that I would possibly keep on the practice squad. I wouldn't necessarily put him on a 53 man roster, but he would be a good guy to have on the roster that you can always go and elevate at any point if one of our running backs were to get banged up. Nathan Carter showed me a lot in that last game of him scoring that touchdown. And even in the first game before the guy ended up getting hurt, he was the guy that was running the football at the time when the guy from the Lions tried to tackle him and got hurt. But Nathan Carter is one of those guys that I think is a solid player. And he's a good guy to have as a backup, another security type insurance type policy to have. So I would definitely have Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier as the starters, or the two, 1A, 1B type situation. But I would keep Nathan Carter on the practice squad. I don't know if he'll make the 53-man roster. Now, I know Carlos Washington is another guy that this team likes. He's been with our team for a while, and I like Carlos Washington as well. But he's been experiencing injuries. He hasn't played in any of the preseason, and he has dealt with some injuries throughout training camp. So, going to be very interesting to see out of those guys, who makes the roster, who makes the practice squad. But I'm gonna say that on my 53-man roster, it's Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. That's definitely gonna make the 53. Now the wide receiver spot, this is where it got a little bit dicey for me because to me these guys have played really well when you talk about the wide receiver group. But the guys that I have making the roster without a doubt is Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod, Cordell Hodge, Casey Washington, and Jamal Agnew. Now Chris Blair is a guy that I think that should or could make the roster. I feel like he's deserving to make the 53-man roster based off what I've seen in all of these preseason games. Chris Blair is a guy that has played really well, and I really feel like it's going to kind of be neck and neck between him and Jamal Agnew on getting on the 53-man roster. Um, Personally, I know a lot of people think, like Jamal Agnew as a special teams type player, and I like him as well as a return man. But I really feel like this Falcons team has depth when it comes to return, guys that can return kickoffs and things of that nature. So I think that they're going to keep Jamal Agnew on the team because I really feel like our special teams coach really, really likes Jamal Agnew. He's been talking about him even before he was a Falcon when he was with the Jaguars. Our special teams coach has always raved about Jamal Agnew, but I think that Ray McLeod is a guy that can run back kicks. You have a number of guys that can actually take back kicks, so you don't necessarily need Jamal Agnew on the team, but I think that he's going to make it by default because I really feel like the coaches really, really like him, even though we haven't seen him a whole lot as far as preseason and things of that nature. So a guy that's on the bubble to me is Chris Blair. I feel like Blair deserves to be on the roster, but I don't have him on my 53 just based off of the numbers. But I definitely think that he'll be a practice squad guy. But what scares me about that, again, as I mentioned before, I think another team could possibly try to go after Chris Blair based off of what he's shown us in the preseason. He's been balling out in the preseason. Now, and shouts out to D Coleman. I know I've been kind of ranting and raving here talking about my roster, but shouts out to the ones that has jumped into the chat since I've been talking. I see D Coleman in the chat says Seals got a nice game, big body with some separation. Yeah, I like Seals as well. David Seals has been playing really well as well during camp and also during these preseason games. But that's why I continue to say over and over again, this gonna be a tough 53-man roster to make. Like David Seals, no way I see him making the 53-man roster. Now I could see him as another guy that could be on the practice squad, but based off of how much depth we have at the wide receiver position, yeah, I don't think that David Sills will make it. But I definitely think that I would try to keep him on practice squad because you get like 16, I think 16 spots. So he definitely will be a guy that'll be on the practice squad. But hopefully he's not one of those guys that I just talked about where another team comes after him and he doesn't go pass through waivers because our guys have been playing well. Our backups has been playing well during preseason. And trust me, these other teams and their scouts are watching these games as well. And if they don't have a strong wide receiver core like the Falcons have, they could easily come after some of these guys that we have on our roster. Um, and shouts out to Floyd Donnelly. He says, I'm a proud Poppy Falcons fan. What's up, man? I appreciate you joining. And man, Mike says Chris Blair is listed as a reserve. He could be cut. PS guys, as you stated, you. Yeah, I mean, I love Chris Blair. To me, he was on the roster at times last year. They elevated him, and he played really well when he got into a couple of the games. So, I really feel like Chris Blair is a guy that is on the rise. Like I like his game based off of I like when I see guys develop. And when they talk about developing guys, to me, the Falcons have done a good job of developing some of these guys. And Chris Blair is one of those guys where every single year I've seen him get better, better and better and better. Like the first time I seen him play in the preseason, he was just average, but now he's showing me consistency. He's going up, catching the ball at his highest point, running crisp routes, not panicking. He seems like he's always in the right position. And him and Easton Stick have a connection. Between those two guys, Chris Blair has made big plays in every single game, and it seems like him and Easton Stick are on one accord. So and then it just looks like he's super confident at this point. Like he feels like he deserves to be on the NFL level. He's not out there bright eyed and bushy tailed anymore. He's out there playing like he's a veteran guy, like he belongs. So I really feel like Chris Blair does deserve a spot. And let's see here. Terry Ocean Boy Martin Jr. says, "What it do, Jew? Hey man, I appreciate you joining me." Floyd Donnelly says Nash. Maybe PS. Yeah, Nash, I don't think he's gonna even I don't think Nash will make he's definitely not making the 53. I don't know about the practice squad. Depends on how many wide receivers they're trying to keep, but we can't keep I don't see them keeping 3 or 4 wide receivers on practice squad either. I really don't. Unless you can play special teams, that's the only way that you're gonna still be on the team. And Georgia Texas Boy says I think Kobe goes to practice squad. He might get poached. Yeah, that's why I said the practice squad scares me. It says no, no sir, Chris Blair. Yeah, Chris Blair is that dude. Let's see. And what's up, the Big Ant man? What's happening, Big Ant? I appreciate you joining me as well. He says once Nick Nash develops more, he's going to be dangerous in the future. Yeah, I like Nick Nash's game as well. Like I said, all of our guys have been showing out. These wide receivers, Dylan Drummond, all of these guys that have been playing all of the guys in the preseason for the most part that have gotten the opportunities have shown me something. So I really feel like it's going to be hard. And there go D. Coben saying Nash, Seals, Drummond fight for very few practice squad spots. Yeah, yeah, definitely. And Ali says Blair is definitely right for this. Yeah, like I said, man, I really feel like it's gonna be tough. But for my tight ends, I have Kyle Pitts, of course, making the roster. I have Charlie Warner and then Tegan Quinciano. Yeah, however you said his name, I think I got it right. But yeah, I have those three guys making it. So that's pretty much self-explanatory. I mean, Kyle Pitts, Charlie Warner, and Tegan, all three of those guys, I feel like it's going to be on this team, because we know we like to run multiple tight end sets at times, and because we like to run the football, Tegan is more of a blocking style tight end. Charlie Warner, we know he's like a H back. He can do it all, but he's mainly a blocker as well. And then we know Kyle Pitts is just Kyle Pitts. He's that dude. Floyd Donnelly says Felipe Franks. I think Felipe Franks is a practice squad guy. Yeah, I don't see him making the 53, unfortunately, unless they like him over Tegan. But I don't see him making it over Tegan. I think that Tegan offers a little bit more in the blocking aspect. The only way I see Felipe Franks getting on the 53-man roster is if they like him in special teams, because that's where Felipe Franks to me can make hay, or that's where he can, that's where he can actually, possibly make this roster, is if they like him on the special team side of the game, then he'll possibly make it based off of they think that he's a really good special teams player, similar to D'Angelo Malone, who's kind of been like a special teams ace, a guy that they wanted to keep on the roster because he's one of the better special teams guys in the league. All right, so moving on to the offensive line, I have Jake Matthews, of course, Matthew Bergeron, Ryan Newsel, Chris Lindstrom, Caleb McGarry, Storm Norton, Elijah Wilkinson, and Javon Gwynn. Those are the guys that I have making the roster. Now, there were a couple other guys like Hinton that I kept off of the 53-man roster, but he could possibly make it as well. He probably will be a practice squad type guy for this Falcons team. But I have us um, cutting Jack Nelson, who I believe was our sixth round pick, if I'm not mistaken, out of Wisconsin. He might be a guy that can be a practice squad guy as well. He's been playing a little bit of tackle, and I think that he's a solid player. He just needs time to develop. So I really feel like Nelson could be a guy, if nobody poached him off our practice squad, he can be a guy that develops with Dwayne Ledford. We know Dwayne Ledford to me is one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL. So I could easily see um I could easily see him being stashed on the practice squad and Jack Nelson. He's kind of struggled during the preseason. I think they had him playing right tackle, if I'm not mistaken, and he's kind of struggled. But he's a really big kid, 6'7", 300 plus pounds, and he played pretty well at Wisconsin. We know that Wisconsin is known for their offensive linemen and running the football, being tough in the trenches. So I think he could be a guy that develops, but he struggled with holding penalties, and he's really struggled during the preseason. But he's kind of been thrown in the fire and thrown to the wolves. So, at this point, we'll see what happens. But I definitely could see him develop. He's a rookie, so he needs time to develop. And Big Ant says Nelson just needs some more grooming, but the signs are definitely there. Yeah, I definitely think he has the traits. He just needs to develop a little bit more. It needs time to learn the NFL game. So I don't have him making a 53-man roster, but I definitely think he'll be a practice squad guy. Now let's go over to the defensive side of the ball. So that's what I had on the offensive side of the ball. The defensive side of the ball, we're gonna start in the trenches with the interior defensive line. So I have David Onyemata making the roster. I have Ruka Rororo, Zach Harrison, Brandon Dorless, Taquan Graham, Lakel London. You guys know that I love the trenches. Morgan Fox and Contavious Street. So I have about, I think, 8 guys making it from the interior defensive line. So based off of the style that we are playing in this attack style on defense, I expect the Falcons to have a lot of bodies that they're going to rotate in and out of the game and things of that nature, based off of how they want to play football in the trenches and do like hockey, shifts where they're bringing in a whole new 3 to 4 guys at a time. I really feel like the Falcons are going to do everything in their power. If you listen to Coach Ali, Nate Ali, where he talks about, we want these guys to give us all they got for 4 straight plays, but all I'm asking these guys to do is just, run in the dark room, be aggressive, attack. If you think you stink, all of these different things that Coach Ali's, all these philosophies that he talk about he just wants these guys to attack, 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 and that we're going to throw haymakers all game. We're not going to be one of those boxers that come in and try to jab. This Atlanta Falcons defense is going to be in attack mode for 60 minutes. They're going to attack, 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 attack all game long. So in that instance and in that same vein, I really feel like the Falcons are going to have to keep a bunch of defensive linemen on this team so they can rotate them in and out. And then if injuries do strike, you have the guys. So, and to have the bodies on this team to be able to stop the run and to be able to wear down opposing offensive lines and wear down opposing offenses with that aggressive style and aggressive mindset. So I definitely think that this Falcons defensive line is going to be dangerous. But those are the guys that I have as far as the interior linemen. And shouts out to my boy Red in the chat, Red Swarm. I appreciate you joining me. He said, "Yo, what's good, Jew and Dirty Bird Nation?" Yeah, salute, definitely, man. I appreciate you joining me tonight. So we're gonna jump into the edge rushers. So for my 53-man roster, I have for the edge guys, Leonard Floyd. I have Arnold Epicadi, James Pierce Jr., Jalen Walker, and Braylon Trice. So those are your like outside linebacker guys. Of course, you can throw Caden Ellis towards the edge as well. But I'm loving what I'm seeing out of the defensive line and these edge guys. I really feel like James Pierce Jr. is going to be a force to be reckoned with. Very, very good player already. He's shown me some different things already in this preseason, but I really feel like what's going to make him deadly is that first step. He's one of the fastest, if not the fastest guy off the ball. When you talk about guys with that quick first step, that's what separates James Pierce. Is his motor never stops, but he has that quick first step. and he has length, 6'5", a guy that can bend the edge, but a guy that's very aggressive. So I really feel like he's going to be the difference maker when you talk about, being a dangerous, player coming off the edge. Now, Jalen Walker, he's another guy that I think also can be special out of Georgia for this Falcons team. He is battling with a growing injury, they said. So I'm glad that they're holding him out pretty much the rest of camp, holding him out for the last preseason game. He didn't play, I don't believe, a whole lot in this last game either, if at all. I don't remember seeing him a ton in this last preseason game. But I just want to see Jalen Walker come into the season healthy. I really feel like the Falcons made the right decision by bringing in two elite pass rushers that were elite in college, and they have the traits that could possibly be elite players on the NFL level. They're not elite yet because they're rookies. We haven't seen them play a game, but they were elite pass rushers in the collegiate ranks. So I do think both of those guys have a chance to be special. Now, Arnold Epikady, I really feel like he could be the sleeper for this Atlanta Falcons team coming off the edge because from what I've seen, he's another guy that when we say the Falcons don't develop guys, he's a guy that I think is starting to develop into something special. From what I've seen him do so far in the preseason and some of the videos that I've seen him work in this offseason, he was at the Pass Rush Summit. He really has put the work in, and I'm really proud to see. Arnold Epikady doesn't talk a whole lot, like in the media and stuff like that. But I really feel like he's a guy that could go under the radar, but have a really good year. Could easily lead this Falcons team in sacks because a lot of people don't really pay a whole lot of attention to him. And being that we have this aggressive style, attack style defense, and we're gonna get a lot of pressure, with guys pushing up, up the middle and the center with guys like Ruko Rororo, guys like Onyemata. When you have those guys, Brandon Dorless, those guys pressing the middle of the pocket, it's only going to create more one-on-one matchups for guys like Arnold Epikady, for guys like Leonard Floyd coming off the edge, and Jalen Walker and the Braylon Trice of the world. So I really feel like this is going to be a very, very deep defensive line for the Falcons and a dangerous front seven for the Falcons. Now, as far as the inside linebackers that I had making the roster, and I can't remember if I ran through the full list, my fault. So for the edge rushers, I had Leonard Floyd, Arnold Epikady, James Pierce Jr., Jalen Walker, and Braylon Trice. I don't know if I mentioned Braylon Trice. So those are the guys that I had making it off the edge. But the inside linebackers, I have Caden Ellis. I have Devon Diablo making the roster. I have J.D. Bertrand. I have D'Angelo Malone and Troy Anderson. Now, this was one of the toughest, I'll say, groups for me to pick for the 53-man roster because I started to leave off guys like J.D. Bertrand. I think he's on the chopping block. I started to leave off guys like Troy Anderson because he's injured, and I don't know if he's going to start the season on the PUP list or if he's going to be a guy, that the Falcons could possibly cut because he hasn't lived up to, his expectations. Now, I like Troy Anderson a lot. I think he's a guy that's his traits are there. Like he has speed. He would be a perfect linebacker for Jeff Ulbricht's scheme because we know he likes guys like the Deion Jones. He likes the quick, fast, shifty linebackers, guys that can run sideline to sideline, guys that are super athletic. And that's who Troy Anderson is. But for whatever reason, Troy Anderson cannot stay healthy. So we know the best ability is availability. And if you can't stay healthy, that's the quickest way to get cut, from an NFL team. If you're not, available, you cannot help the team. I don't care how great you are as far as your skill set. If you can't stay healthy, that's the number one thing, is being able to be out there when your team needs you. And Troy Anderson kind of has letting us, his body has broken down on him, and he's kind of let the Falcons down the last couple years. Now, of course, you can't help injuries. I'm not trying to come for him by any stretch of the imagination. When you get hurt, we know football is the game of, the war of attrition, where you got to stay healthy. But he was a guy that I really feel like is still on the chopping block. Like, I don't know which way they're going to lean when it comes to Troy Anderson, whether they're going to keep him or get rid of him. But we have guys that can replace Troy Anderson. When we got Devon Diablo, he's like the same type of player. Quick, shifty, athletic, long, can make all of the plays similar to a Troy Anderson can cover. He probably covers better than Troy Anderson because he used to be a safety and he's more a natural linebacker over Troy Anderson. So, we're gonna see where it falls, but the three guys that I think could be on the chopping block out of the guys that I named on the linebackers, JD Bertrand, D'Angelo Malone, Troy Anderson. To me, none of those guys are locks to make the team. The only locks are Caden Ellis and Devon Diablo. The other guys, JD Bertrand, D'Angelo Malone, and Troy Anderson, all of those guys could end up on the practice squad or end up cut. I like what I'm seeing out of D'Angelo Malone. They're trying to get him to be an off-ball linebacker or a stack linebacker instead of just being a guy that comes off the edge. What I think is going to be his saving grace in D'Angelo Malone is he's really good on the special team side of the ball. So they probably will keep him on the roster because of his athleticism. But I'm not too sure where they're leaning when it comes to those three guys. So we'll see what happens. But I got all of the guys on my 53. So I got Caden Ellis, Devon Diablo, JD Bertrand, D'Angelo Malone, and Troy Anderson. All of those guys. I have them on my making the 53. Now the DBs or cornerbacks, I have AJ Terrell, Mike Hughes, D. Alford, Billy Bowman Jr., Natron Brooks, and Clark Phillips. Now, this was another group that was really, really hard for me to decide, as far as who was going to make the 53 because we brought in CJ Henderson. We brought in Mike Ford on a 1-year deal. He's a guy that's really good in special teams. This is his second stint with the Atlanta Falcons. He was with us a couple years ago. But I don't have Mike Ford on my 53. I left him off the 53 because I really can't trust Mike Ford as a cornerback. I think he's a great gunner, but I feel like the Falcons have guys that can fill that role. Like Billy Bowman showed me that in these preseason games that he can be a gunner, but he's also a really good corner as well. I feel like he's going to be a better corner in the league than Mike Ford. Could Mike Ford still make the team? Yes. But I really feel like Natron Brooks, I had to put him on the 53-man roster because to me, he's made plays. Like Natron Brooks, I don't see how you can leave him off this 53-man roster. I just can't do it. I would be scared to put him on the practice squad because every time I watch Natron Brooks play, whether it started last season during the preseason or this year, he's the guy that plays with his hair on fire. Had an interception in this last preseason game. A guy that's a very good tackler, a guy that's fearless, a guy that can play in the slot, can play outside. And he had an interception, I heard, in this last practice against Kirk Cousins during training camp. So he's just a guy that's been popping up and making plays. And you guys know what I've said about this defense. This defense is going to be predicated off of turning over the football, meaning getting turnovers, as many turnovers as possible, and giving the offense as many cracks at scoring touchdowns and scoring points as possible. So out of the guys that I picked, I went after the guys that I really feel like are really great cornerbacks, not necessarily they're great on special teams. Some of these guys that I named can play special teams. We know D. Alford is a guy that can return punts and things of that nature. We know that Billy Bowman, like I said, he can play that gunner role. And even guys like Natron Brooks, you can put Natron Brooks out there to cover punts and things of that nature. So I left off CJ Henderson because he just got to the Atlanta Falcons. He hasn't been here, but like they got him literally like last Thursday before last week's preseason game, so he didn't even play last week. So I don't really feel like CJ Henderson really has a fair shot to make the roster at this point, because he's only going to play probably in this next preseason game, but he hasn't been here to learn the scheme. He hasn't been with this team the whole training camp, so he's going to come in kind of behind the eight ball. He's already behind the eight ball. So I could see CJ Henderson or Mike Ford possibly being on the practice squad. But based off of what I've seen out of camp, I had to go with the guys that I feel like are the best corners. And based off of that, AJ Terrell, Mike Hughes, D. Alford, Billy Bowman Jr., Natron Brooks, and Clark Phillips. To me, those are the better guys when you talk about playing a DB position, not just playing special teams, personally. And let me jump into the chat really quick because I see you guys saying some different things. So I want to respond to some of y'all's comments. So D Coleman says I can't say JD or Malone is better than Josh Woods right now, and Troy ain't healthy. That's a great statement. Josh Woods is another guy that was hard for me to. That was a difficult cut for me. He could make the roster, easily make the roster, or be on the 53 man, the 53 man or the practice squad. If I had to bet money, I would say Josh Woods would be on the practice squad. But if Josh Woods does make it, he's going to make it over JD Bertrand or Troy Anderson. Those are one of the guys that will go over him. I don't think they'll get rid of D'Angelo Malone for Josh Woods because they're the similar players. Both of those guys are mainly special teams guys, but he's been balling as well. And Big Ant says Josh Woods has been making plays after making play after play this training camp. Facts, especially in that first preseason game, he had the forced fumble. He was flying all over the field making plays. Let's see. And D. Coleman says, I think having Jalen gives you the ability to roll with 3 inside linebackers since you keeping 5 edges. Right. Yeah, Jalen, if you're referring to Jalen Walker, yeah, he's a guy who can play linebacker as well. That's what made him dangerous. That's why I like the pick by the Falcons, because if Jalen Walker doesn't work out as strictly a pass rusher, he can easily revert to the Caden Ellis role. So you always can flip flop those guys. Like if for whatever reason Jalen Walker is struggling getting to the quarterback from that edge position because he's a smallish outside linebacker, you could easily throw him in the inside linebacker role and just swap him between him and Caden Ellis, because Caden Ellis is a guy we know can come off the edge. And Red Swarm says, how many DBs do you think we carried you? So I counted, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I got 6, Red Swarm. I got 6 making the roster. And what's up to Dre the Boxer, man? I appreciate it. Appreciate you joining me, my brother. I hope all's going well with you. Jonte Razier says, what's good, Jew? What's happening? I appreciate you joining me as well. And shouts out to you. Shouts out to everybody in the chat. Make sure everybody, y'all step on that like button for your boy as you come in. And share out the content as well, because y'all can expect me to pop up every Tuesday night. That's my word. Unless, God forbid, one of the kids or something like that is sick, or my wife is down. As you guys know, I said in the beginning of the live show, they don't come. My channel doesn't come before my family. So if they need me, they need me. But since the season is here, pretty much, y'all can expect me to be live at 9 p.m. every Tuesday. That's going to be the date. So if you guys want to put it in a time slot where y'all want to join your boy, 9 p.m. Eastern time every Tuesday is when y'all can expect me to be live, because the season is here. We're literally 3 weeks away from the opening kickoff. So y'all can expect to see your boy. D. Coleman says Natron has had 2 good preseasons in a row. He's earned a spot. Exactly. Yeah, Natron, I couldn't keep him off the roster. He's been balling. And let's see. And Ant says the same thing. Brooks has been showing the hell out all training camp and in the preseason. Facts. Red Swarm says deciding which DBs we keep was a tough decision for me to make. I like our DB depth. Yeah, we're deep at corner. That's why I said CJ Henderson is probably going to be on the chopping block. And that's why I was surprised when the Falcons were bringing in some of these safeties and DBs. I was like, these guys definitely just have to be camp bodies, or they're just trying to make these guys compete with the guys that we have on the roster. But the guys that we thought were on the chopping block, like the D Alfords of the world, I don't think the D Alford is on the chopping block anymore. Like from what he showed me in the preseason, D Alford is a solid corner. He's a solid nickel. He's a guy who can return punts. And he's a glue guy. He's not a star, but he's a glue, and that's what you need in the NFL. You're not going to have a bunch of star players on in your secondary. The only stars in our secondary right now is Jesse Bates and AJ Terrell. Those are the stars. Mike Hughes is a glue guy. D Alfred is a glue guy, but that's all you need in the NFL. You don't necessarily need a bunch of all pros in your secondary. You need the guys just to play on the string. So that's kind of where I sit with it. And let's see. Let's scroll down a little bit. So Ali says DBs are the hardest ones to cut. Yeah, I agree. Like I said, that was one of the ones I struggle with. And Big N said Drew live in full effect on Tuesday night. Yep. Y'all better pull up on me. I'm gonna be up here every Tuesday night. And Ali says we still gotta keep Kobe though. So Kobe Bryant, that's another guy that I don't have him on the 53-man roster. He'll be a practice squad guy unless he's poached by another team. He hasn't really shown enough for to meet a warrant of the 53-man roster spot. I like his name. I like what he did in college. I liked his, film and things of that nature. And when I looked at his college film, his tape, his highlights and stuff like that, he's a guy that Dan Quinn would have liked. Raheem Morris, we know they like those long corners, physical, can play press man coverage, get in your face type corners. That's what Kobe brings to the table. But being that he's been injured and stuff like that during the training camp, I think that kind of hurt his stock because he hasn't played in these preseason games. I don't think he's played in any of these preseason games, if I'm not mistaken. And somebody in the chat correct me if I'm wrong. Has Kobe Bryant played in the preseason? I don't think I've seen him play at all. So I really feel like that's gonna hurt his stock. Like I said, I think he'll be a practice squad guy. I don't think he's getting cut, but I definitely don't think he's making the 53-man roster. But let's see. William Amy says you think starting strong safety outside Jesse Bates. Who you think is starting at strong safety? That's a good question. And I'm going to get into my safeties now. So great segue, William Amy. So my safeties I got making a roster is Jesse Bates, the third, Xavier Watts, Jordan Fuller, and DeMarco Hellams. Those are the four safeties that I have us carrying on the 53-man roster. Now, opposite of Jesse Bates, I would say it probably will be Jordan Fuller or DeMarco Hellams. I like Xavier Watts a whole lot, but I don't think he's going to start the season as the strong safety. I think they're going to wait a little bit. I think it's going to be a similar situation to what we've seen in 2016 when you had the two linebackers we brought in, both Deion Jones and Devondre Campbell. If you guys remember when we first drafted Deion Jones and Devondre Campbell in that same year, they started the first game of the season, which I was actually at that game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It was Sean Weatherspoon and Paul Warlow. Those guys started the season as the starting inside linebackers because they were the veteran guys. And then I'll say maybe 2 to 3 games in the season, eventually Deion Jones took over that inside linebacker, middle linebacker Mike spot, and Devondre Campbell took over. So Warlow and Sean Weatherspoon ended up getting injured. But they took over those roles. So I think it'll be the same thing in this instance. I think they're going to give Xavier Watts time to develop. Now, we talking about Madden. If shouts out to any of y'all who play Madden 26. I've been playing it and I'm enjoying the game a lot so far. I have Xavier Watts as my starting safety on Madden, but we know that Madden in real life is not the same. So just based off experience, I'm gonna go with Jordan Fuller or DeMarco Hellams. Now, personally, I would like DeMarco Hellams to be out there for the intimidation factor. I think that DeMarco Hellams gives this Falcons team that Keanu Neal type player that we haven't had in a while. A guy in that secondary that If you run across the middle, he's gonna make you pay the price, and he's gonna add that intimidation and that toughness that I think this Falcons team lacked over the last couple years. Um, but I think that Xavier Watts is another guy. Once he gets it together, and once he has some, has some experience under his belt, I think that Xavier Watts is really he has the most upside. But starting the season, just to answer your question, William, I would say it's going to probably be Jordan Fuller because he's the safe pick and he already knows Raheem's scheme, or DeMarco Hellams. I don't think that they're going to throw Xavier Watts out there game one against the Buccaneers. I'll be very surprised if Xavier Watts somehow finds his way as the starter come game one, week one. I don't see it happening. Unless, stranger things have happened, but I don't see it happening. I say they started either with DeMarco Hellams or Jordan Fuller because of their experience. And we know that Raheem Morris, he likes to go with veteran guys over younger guys, like rookies. He don't really trust rookies a whole lot. That's why I was surprised to even see James Pearson, Jalen Walker getting as much snaps as they've been getting in the preseason, because it sounds like they're going to play a lot as rookies, which is a good thing. I really feel like if you draft a guy, if he has the skill set, put him out there. That's how I feel about it. But for whatever reason, we know a lot of coaches, they like to give the veteran. Prime example would be the Cleveland Browns. If you look at what they're doing with Joe Flacco, we know that Joe Flacco is way past his prime. But instead of throwing Shador out there, or putting the young and upstart guy in there, they're gonna start the season with the old veteran, and then if they lose a couple games, then they're gonna try to throw Shador in there. So I think it's gonna be the same thing with us. They're gonna start with the veteran, and unless the veteran loses the spot, they're gonna try to let the veteran play before they put Watts out there. Now I expect this Falcons team to run some three safety sets. So it's not like it matters who necessarily the starter is, because I really feel like they're going to rotate the safeties. The only one who probably won't come out the game is Jesse Bates, because he's just elite. He's the best safety in the NFL. But when you talk about Helms, when you talk about Watts, and when you talk about Fuller, those are three guys you can rotate depending on what scheme you're running. You could possibly see Helms like as a box safety, or even Watts as a box safety at times, where they're in on passing downs and they take one of the inside linebackers out the game just to, make the defense a little bit more exotic and things of that nature. So, and help with the coverage. And let's see. So William maybe says Jordan Fuller has to show me. Let's see. Georgia Texas voice. I think we run more safety than dime. Exactly. Yeah, I agree. Three safety sets. I think that's what the Falcons are going to do to try to get these guys on the field. William says, I don't think Jordan Fuller is starting over DeMarco Hellams. We'll see. Ali says, yes, got mine on Thursday. I agree. DeMarco just got to stay healthy. Yeah, DeMarco he's the tone setter for this team. He could end up being one of the X factors for this team. I did a whole video where I talked about DeMarco Hellams. Like I said, he's the lightning rod. When you talk about Keanu Neal, if you go back and look at that 2016 run, Keanu Neal was a lightning rod for that Falcons team, because he was a very, very dangerous hitter. One of those guys that was an intimidator. One of the guys that opposing teams feared, and opposing quarterbacks were reluctant to throw the ball in his area once he laid a hit on somebody. He was one of them guys that you guys remember him hitting Willie Snead and pretty much, knocking him knocking him silly, basically. Yeah, so I really think that DeMarco Hellams is that guy. He's special as far as when you want somebody to fly around, reckless abandon. When you talk about attack, and this defense being in attack mode, somebody that's going to be in attack mode at all times, somebody that doesn't, shy away from contact, that's DeMarco Hellams. He plays with his hair on fire, and I love that about his game, the passion he plays with, the aggressiveness he plays with. And let's see here. And Matt Mike says it'll be a process for sure, Drew, over time. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a process. I don't think that Watts is gonna be thrown into the fire right off the bat. And I don't really feel like there's a benefit in even doing that. I really don't. I would want to see the veteran guys, where he can learn behind those guys. They brought Jordan Fuller in for a reason, and I really feel like it's to kind of mentor Xavier Watts, both Jesse Bates and Jordan Fuller. And shouts out to my boy Dreddy. It's been a minute, my bro. Shouts out to you, man. He says, Jude, what's good, man? Nothing much, man. I hope all is going well with you, bro. I appreciate you joining me. And make sure y'all support the content. Like I said, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, definitely lock in and hit that subscribe button for your boy. We got 40 in the chat. So if I can get 40 likes, man, I appreciate it, man. We just want to get the algorithm going and just show that y'all appreciate the content, man. The likes is free. Just hit the like button for your boy. Whether you do it now or before you step off the channel, make sure you hit that like, man. Hit that like button. Show your boy some love. And let's see. And William maybe said Jordan Fuller sucks. I'm sorry, he ain't showed me nothing. So he don't suck. Go look at his highlights, William Amy. Go look at his highlights when he was with the LA Rams. That'll give you the best idea of what you can expect from Jordan Fuller. Jordan Fuller is a really good player. He reminds me of I'll say he's a taller, more athletic version of Ricardo Allen. If you remember Ricardo Allen from the first Atlanta Falcons, the 2016 Falcons team, that's who Jordan Fuller plays like. Rangy, but he's like 6'2". We know that Ricardo Allen was on like 5'10" or 5'9". He was a smaller guy, but he's rangy like that. He's not a hitter. He's a coverage guy. So if you want somebody that you can play that deep third or like the single high safety, that's what Jordan Fuller does really well. He reads the quarterback's eyes really well. He does a good job of breaking on footballs and getting interceptions. And he's also a solid tackler. He's not a thumper. So he's not DeMarco Hellams. DeMarco Hellams is your thumper. That's not what Jordan Fuller is. Jordan Fuller is a coverage guy. But you're going to need coverage in this defense. And sometimes you might prefer a coverage guy over a thumper because the coverage guy is going to go after the interceptions. If you guys were watching the game, the first preseason game, if you had your TV turned up and they were talking about DeMarco Hellams, it was like he could have had an interception right there, but he went for the tackle. That's the difference between a thumper and a coverage guy. You guys remember Keanu Neal in that 2017 divisional round game against the Eagles where he jumped up to catch the ball and ended up kneeing the ball, and the Eagles end up catching the ball. It was an easy interception, but we know that Keanu Neal was not known for his coverage. Not saying that he couldn't cover, but he was more of a thumper. He went for the big hit over the interception. Fuller is going to be a guy that'll break on the football before he just try to lay the wood on somebody. So that's the difference. So it's just going to come down to what do they prefer? Do they prefer somebody that's going to thump, or do they prefer somebody that's going to play coverage and go after the football? Because that's what you're giving and taking. So you got to, determine what would you rather have? Would you rather have a guy that's going to intimidate and thump and make tackles, or would you rather have somebody that might take the ball away just by I'm going to go and get an interception? So I really feel like that's what it's going to come down to. I think it's a value in both. And personally, I like having guys that can do multiple things. So I really feel like you have a guy that can cover in Jesse Bates. So you might want to have DeMarco Hellams opposite of Jesse Bates to be that fire versus ice, or the yin and the yang. One guy's more of a coverage guy, another guy's more of a thumper. The advantage of having Jordan Fuller and Bates both out there at the same time, one at strong safety, one at free, is those guys are interchangeable. I don't know you can say the same thing for a DeMarco Hellams, meaning it might be harder to disguise coverages when you have a guy that's just a thumper, because guess what? You're not going to 9 times out of 10 put Keanu Neal as a single high safety where he has to cover the deep third, because he was more of a box safety. So that's what you're losing with DeMarco Hellams. You may not want to play DeMarco Hellams as a single high safety. If you have Jesse Bates and Fuller playing together, and the benefit of doing that is those guys both can be interchangeable, as meaning both of those guys can play in the box. Both of those guys could be the single high safety. So that keeps opposing offenses off balance because a quarterback can't automatically assume when they see DeMarco Hellams, they're going to automatically assume that he's coming down in the box to try to thump. They're not going to assume that he's going to drop into coverage to try to make a play on the ball. So that's the benefit of having a guy like a Jordan Fuller on the roster. He can actually go out there and do multiple things. He can actually play the deep third. So you don't necessarily have to have Jesse Bates doing that at all times. You have Helms out there 9 times out of 10. You leaving majority of the coverage responsibilities on Jesse Bates at that point because Helm's strengths is not coverage. His strengths is making tackles and stuff like that and intimidating. And shouts out to Calvin Tolbert. He says, "What up? I appreciate you, man, for joining me tonight." Like I said, man, I appreciate all of you guys, man. From what I can see, we got 18 likes, 43 in the chat. Make sure y'all hit that like button for your boy if you just stepped in. I appreciate you guys. And let's see. And Ali says, "I forgot Kenny was still with Cleveland." Who you talking about, Kenny Pickett? I don't think Kenny Pickett's with Cleveland no more. Kenny Pickett is who does Kenny Pickett play for? He doesn't play with the I don't think he plays with oh no, he does play with Cleveland. I'm sorry. Kenny Pickett was on the Steelers, but I think he is on the on Cleveland, but he's hurt. Kenny Pickett is hurt. Like he hasn't been really doing anything in training camp and he hasn't played in any of the preseason games. But I think they got 4 quarterbacks on the roster right now. So they got Dylan Gabriel, Shador Sanders, Kenny Pickett, and Joe Flacco. Excuse me. Let's see here. And Georgia Texas boy says, "Wait, Cleveland got Flacco, Pickett, Sanders, Dillon, and Huntley." Yeah, I forgot. And they signed Snoop Huntley. Yeah, they got 5 quarterbacks. Yeah, they wilding. They wilding. That's just shows you Cleveland don't know what they're doing. Unless one of them guys finna play a different position, they should have just went ahead and took Shador early in the draft, first round, whatever. They wanted to play around with it and make a point, and they end up taking him in the 5th round. They drafted, I think, Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round. They turned around and drafted Shador Sanders in the 5th round. Make sense. The wasted draft picks, wasted draft capital. And Big Ant says, DeMarco Hellams reminds me of Willie Moe so much. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, Willie Moe, Keanu Neal. Yeah, both of those guys were thumpers. But like I said, you need that yin and yang. If you remember Willie Moe, you had Willie Moe who was the thumper, and you had what's his name? I can't think of his name now. Deku. You had Deku at the free safety position. So Deku was more the coverage type safety. William Moore was the more the thump. Willie Moe was the thumper. So I mean, like I said, you need that guy that can thump as well and be an intimidator. And William Amy says, because a lot of the media is saying DeMarco Hellams is the favorite, plus the man uniform is online. Nah, I don't know. I mean, Hellams, I wouldn't be surprised if he's the favorite. Hellams has been balling out. Let's not get it twisted. Hellams has had a really, really good camp and good preseason. So if Hellams ends up being the starter, I wouldn't be surprised. Hellams was going to be the starter last year before he got hurt, and they went out and got Justin Simmons. The only reason they brought Simmons in is because Hellams got hurt. He hurt his ankle. If he didn't hurt his ankle, it would have been Bates and Hellams last year as the starters. And Calvin Tober said, "Do you think we're going to lose Algier?" Not this year. He'll be on the roster this year. Now, second contract wise, I think Tyler Algier is gone next year. And I see you say under the next comment next year. Yeah, Tyler Algier is gone next year. The only way that Tyler Algier is an Atlanta Falcon after this season or when his rookie deal is up is if he decides he's going to take a huge pay cut, which I wouldn't do if I were him. I wouldn't even ask Tyler Algier to take a pay cut. If I'm Tyler Algier, I'm going to get a bag somewhere else because I think that Tyler Algier is technically a starting running back in the NFL. He's only a backup because we have Bijan Robinson. If we didn't have Bijan Robinson, we've seen what Tyler Algier is capable of. Before we had Bijan Robinson, we had Cordell Patterson and we had Tyler Algier. I believe Tyler Algier went over 1,000 yards his rookie year, or close, dang near close to. I think he did, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody let me know in the chat if Tyler Algier went over 1,000. I think he did though his rookie year. So I think that I compare Tyler Algier to Michael Turner with the Falcons. If you guys remember, Michael Turner, prior to coming to Atlanta, he was playing behind LaDainian Tomlinson with the San Diego Chargers at the time. And then when he hit free agency, the Falcons gave him the bag because we seen how dangerous Michael Turner was. We basically, everybody around the league knew that he was a starter. He was a backup for LT, who's a Hall of Famer now, of course, who is arguably the best running back one of the best running back of all time, one of the best running backs in the league at that time. But outside of that, Michael Turner was really, really good. So I definitely think that Tyler Algier is going to get paid by somebody. Somebody's going to throw the bag at him. He's not going to be able to turn it down because I don't think the Falcons are going to be able to match somebody else's huge offer, because you still going to have to pay Bijan Robinson. And you guys know my philosophy. If you're new here, maybe you don't know my philosophy. My philosophy when it comes to running backs, you draft one every year if you can. If you have the draft capital, unless you have a bunch of young guys that's still on rookie deals, you draft a running back or pick up running back free agents every year, because that's a position I feel like that translates really well from college to the NFL. Prime example is this kid Nathan Carter that's on our on our roster right now during training camp. That I never heard of the kid, but he's going out there and he's showing me something. So sometimes you can find running backs off, not even draft, undrafted free agent type guys that are really, really good. Or you can find them really, really late in the draft. If you look at Tyler Algier, he was a 5th round pick. And I've just stated he's a starter in the league. So that goes without saying. You can find running backs. Running backs are a dime a dozen, unless you're looking for that special type running back. Like if you're looking for a Bijan Robinson, a Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, those type of guys are one in a lifetime. Some of those type guys. But if you're just talking about I need a running back that can be serviceable, and you're gonna have a running back by committee, you can find those type of guys. Like they said, those type of guys are a dime a dozen. So I would like to see us keep Tyler Algier, but I don't really think it's going to be that's realistic based off of what he's going to want. And let's see here. And Tony Wright says, "What's up, Jew? What's good? What's up, man? I appreciate you joining me as always." Shouts out to Tony. And you guys start dropping those questions in the chat. I know you already started dropping them in the chat already. And I would be remiss not to give my 53-man roster slot for the special teams. I know K-Style somewhere is like, make sure you talk about the third phase of football, which is special teams. So for my 53-man roster, last but not least, the special teams guys I had was Younghoe Koo, Bradley Pinion, and Liam McCullough as the long snapper. So no changes there. We've had these guys for the last, since Arthur Smith was here, as far as the kickers and the punters and the long snapper. So I don't think that those positions are changing. Now, Lenny Krieg, he'll be on the roster as well, but he's one of those foreign players, so he doesn't count against the roster from my understanding, and he'll be a practice squad guy, I think. I heard that he hit a 60-yarder at practice or during training camp. We seen him hit a 57-yarder in the first preseason game. So Lenny Krieg is definitely a guy I would keep on the roster just in case Koo goes down again with injury like he did last year. And then we were forced to go out and get Riley Patterson. So we don't want to see that situation happen again. So I would stash Lenny Krieg on the roster. So God forbid for 1 or 2 games you need him to come in and kick on behalf of Younghoe Koo, you have a solid guy that is capable. I still think that this is Younghoe Koo's job to lose. So at this point, that's where I stand when it comes to that. Dre the Boxer says scheme and supporting cast matters for sure. Look at Baker Mayfield now compared to his Panthers era. Exactly. Yeah. The guys around you matter. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Dre the Boxer, because I've been seeing a lot of foolish stuff online. I don't know if you guys seen the spat that Cam Newton had with Gilly where Gilly was saying that Jalen Hurts is better than Cam Newton and all this kind of stuff. Personally, I don't agree with that. I understand a lot of people think that Cam Newton is bitter when it comes to Jalen Hurts and some of these guys. I don't think that Cam Newton is bitter. I think what Cam Newton was trying to get across is what Drader Boxer just said right there. Scheme and supporting cast matters. So just because you're a guy's playing has won a championship or won doesn't make that player better than another player that doesn't have a championship. Personally, I don't think that Jalen Hurts is a better player than a Cam Newton. That's just me personally. I don't think he's eclipsed Cam. Does he have a chance to eclipse Cam? Possibly. But let's not forget Cam Newton um, led the Panthers to a 15-1 season. Not forget that Cam Newton was an NFL MVP. Let's not forget all of the accolades that Cam Newton has on his resume. I think people get twisted about Super Bowl, winning championships and comparing individual players. If you put Cam Newton in, take Jalen Hurts off of last year's Eagles team, insert Cam Newton on that roster, I really feel like they're a better roster with Cam Newton on the roster because he's basically a better version, a more athletic version of a Jalen Hurts. We think that the tush push is impossible to stop now. Just imagine them putting Cam Superman Newton behind those 300 plus pound, 350-pound offensive linemen that the Eagles have. And then you talk about tush push. That play is already pretty much virtually unstoppable. Just imagine Cam Newton, 250 plus pounds, 6'5", 6'4", running the tush push with guys behind him, Dallas Goedert and those guys pushing him in the back. That's an easy 2 to 3 to 4 yards with Cam Newton because Cam Newton was a freight train. So I understand where he's coming from. And I really feel like that's the problem nowadays is we take scheme and supporting cast and we don't take that into account when we talk about players individually. We just assume because a guy won, okay, this makes him better than somebody else that didn't win a Super Bowl or didn't win a championship. And I completely disagree with that. I feel like you got to add context to it. Not saying that I just have any disdain for Jalen Hurts. That's just my personal opinion. I think Jalen Hurts is a really good quarterback. I think what makes Jalen Hurts a great quarterback is he understands how to manage games. And one of the biggest downfalls to a lot of NFL quarterbacks and just players in general, but especially the quarterback spot, is sometimes quarterbacks try to do too much. And that's what gets a lot of quarterbacks in trouble. And what got Kirk Cousins in trouble last year was it was numerous times I said last year the Falcons could have won a lot of those games. We go back to that LA Chargers game where Kirk threw 4 interceptions. The defense was playing well in that game. If you just rely on your running game, and if Kirk Cousins just throws the ball away when we're in the red zone, allow us to kick field goals, the Falcons would have won that game against the Chargers. But the problem with Kirk Cousins was he was in his own head. He was trying to play hero ball, and that's what cost us, the playoffs last year. So I'll say what makes Jalen Hurts great is he doesn't step outside of what he does well. He understands that the scheme that Philadelphia runs, he runs the scheme to perfection. But he's not a guy that normally is going to force a lot of bad, ill-advised throws. He'll take the 2 to 3 yards you'll give him with his legs at times. If you turn your back and you're in man coverage, he'll take off running. And he just does the small fundamental things right. And he's just a great leader. So I really feel like Jalen Hurts is a really, really good player. But I think that what makes him great is he understands his strengths and his weaknesses, and he plays towards his strengths. He doesn't try to be a pocket passer consistently. He doesn't think that he's Peyton Manning. He understands what makes him great, and he understands that his legs, is one of those things that makes him great, and that he has that great supporting cast. So he only needs to do his job. He doesn't need to do anybody else's job. He doesn't need to win the Eagles any games. If you go look at his stats from last year, Jalen Hurts barely, I don't even think he threw for 3,000 yards last year. I think he threw like for 2,000 and some yards, but that's because a lot of his touchdowns come from the tush push, a lot of the scheme that they ran. He, allowed Saquon Barkley to be the star, and he basically just managed the football games, and that's how they were able to win the Super Bowl because everybody understood their role. But with that being said, let me scroll down a little bit. So let's see. So Xavier Lemon says, for me, I'm more worried about our inside linebacker depth than any other position on defense and our O line depth on offense. I feel like we're one injury away from struggling as a unit, especially our guards. Great point, Xavier Littman. I completely agree with you. Now, to be honest with you, I really don't feel like there's many teams in the NFL that can survive losing an offensive lineman, because if you have like an all pro, say a Chris Lindstrom or a Caleb McGarry or a Jake Matthews, guys that's been Pro Bowlers in the past, you're most likely are not going to be able to replace all pro offensive lineman with a backup. I don't care how good the backup is. They're not going to, be on the level of or play on at that level of whoever that all pro was. So it's not many guys that you can put behind, say, a Chris Lindstrom, that if he were to, Chris Lindstrom, God forbid, knock on wood, if he were to go down, it's not many guys, backups in the league that can replace him. So I definitely understand your logic and why you kind of concerned about the depth in those positions, but you just got to basically pray for health. We can't control injuries and things of that nature. Freak accidents do happen, but I really feel like there's not many teams that can survive losing a bunch of offensive linemen. Like if you look at the Buccaneers, we played in week 1. They're going to be without Tristan Wirfs, who's been a Pro Bowler and an All Pro at that left tackle position. I believe he plays left tackle for the Buccaneers. He's arguably their best offensive lineman. If not, I believe he is their best offensive lineman. But they're gonna be without him for the first couple of games this season, because I believe he had some type of leg injury, I believe, but he's gonna be out. So based off of him being a former Pro Bowler, they don't have anybody on that roster that's gonna be able to necessarily replace him. So you just basically gotta pray that you stay healthy. That's every team. It's not many teams that's deep when you talk about the O line. Now, the inside linebacker position, I'm not really concerned about the inside linebackers, because we have, to me, a lot of guys that you can rotate in. So, like, even if you were to lose an inside linebacker, you have guys like DeMarco Hellams that can play a little bit of linebacker because he's like a box safety. And you still have guys, like I mentioned on the roster, D'Angelo Malone. I mentioned JD Bertrand. Those guys can step in and play the inside linebacker spot as well. So you have, I feel like we have enough depth. So I'm not super concerned. But again, you want to pray for health. If injuries start striking and you lose some key guys, it's hard to keep saying next man up, and expect them guys to be play at the high level. Like next man up mentality, that's all fine and dandy if it's one or two guys. But if you start dropping, guys start dropping like flies, and you got a bunch of backups in there, 9 times out of 10, things are gonna start to get a little bit dicey. If you got to start playing multiple backups as starters. We don't want to see that. We don't want to see that. And let's see here. And Big Ant says, y'all hit that like button for Jew. Yeah, make sure y'all hit that like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the share button. Make sure you hit the super chat. Hit all the buttons. The only button don't hit is the thumbs down. Hit every single button but the thumbs down. But I appreciate y'all. And let's see. Man, Mike says, hope everyone enjoyed today's full lineup on NFL content from the crew. Oh yeah, we keeping the content coming. We like this, the underground. The underground is taking over the sports talk. When you talk about the ESPNs and the Fox Sports ones, if you guys haven't been watching, a lot of the shows are starting to, they're starting to basically cancel a lot of these shows. Like, and I was actually enjoying some of the shows. Fox Sports One, I was enjoying The Facility. They weren't even going for about a year, and they shut that show down. So I really feel like YouTube, we're the new ESPN, we're the new Fox Sports One. We're taking over. When you talk about content creating, we're taking over that spot. That's why I say there's a lot of up and coming Atlanta Falcons content creators and just content creators in general in the sports world nowadays. So I really feel like we taking over that platform just for the mere fact that we can speak candidly. On TV, they can't really speak candidly in certain instances. So I really feel like this is the new the underground is taking over. You know, if you want the true, uncut, unbiased opinions and knowledge about, anything regarding sports, I really like to watch a lot of the podcasts and stuff like that because we speak freely. I enjoy, like I said, the ESPNs and the first takes and when Fox Sports One had Undisputed. I enjoy those shows as well. But I really feel like we follow the team closer than a lot of these sports centers and stuff like that. They don't follow the team like we do. We follow the team daily. So we can tell you before they could tell you accurately our thoughts on the team and stuff like that because we watch every Falcons game. They're watching multiple games at one time and then trying to give you, a synopsis of every team. That's hard to do. So let's see here. And Ali says that strong safety is Jesse is definitely needed. And with Helms, he is a let's see bona fide hitter. Like we said, yeah, I agree. Like Helms is just like I said. If you want to fire to the ice or yin and yang, you want one guy to be coverage and one guy to be a thumper. Then we definitely talking Helms. Yeah, Helms is he's definitely a hitter. They call him Hitman Helms for a reason or Bam Bam for a reason. That's what he does. And shouts out to the Loch Ness. So Georgia Texas boy says, Mad Mike, hell yeah, I'm watching Loch Ness right now to keep rolling. Yeah. Yeah, shouts out to him. If he's already live on his show, y'all make sure y'all check him out as well. Um, check out his live show as well. And William Amy says, yeah, his jersey is online. Gotta grab me a medium. Are you talking about Hitman Helms? I'm thinking about getting me a James Pierce Jr. jersey, man. Like James Pierce is that dude. When I tell you that dude is, yeah, man, he like that. I don't know if it's just me playing Madden with him, and right now I got that man. He that first step he killing, but in his just attitude, I don't know what it is, but I think James Pierce is gonna be a special player and a different player. I haven't seen too many guys wearing the number 27 playing the edge. So he definitely gonna be different, but he been showing me some stuff. And Tony Wright says, Drew, did you see in week number 1 preseason that the Falcons played D'Angelo Malone playing some inside linebacker, then had him playing outside linebacker week 2? I did hear they were going to have him playing a little bit of both. Yeah, I think D'Angelo Malone is another guy that's similar to Caden Ellis. He's like a tweener. He can do both, and he's athletic enough to run sideline to sideline. Now, why did they waited this long to get D'Angelo Malone reps to try to do both? I'm not sure. This probably is definitely Jeff Ulbricht's doing because Jeff Ulbricht is a former linebacker, one of the best. When you talk about linebacker coaches, Jeff Ulbricht is one of the best in the NFL linebacker coaches and defensive coordinators. So it was probably his idea after he seen how D'Angelo Malone runs. He probably said he need to be an off-ball linebacker because he can run sideline to sideline. This man covers kicks and covers